Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and I'm coming to you guys with a brief draft recap video for the Summer Showdown tournament that is taking place at the end of August. This tournament is sponsored by the Token Minorities, so big shoutouts to Jolt and company for organizing this. There's 200 people that are going to be competing in this tournament, and they've had a whole bunch of prelims and other qualifiers, so the number of people who have been involved in this tournament is definitely over 200, so big thanks to them. And just to let you guys know, the UBC was lucky enough to get an all-star invite this season. So the UBC sent 3 coaches to compete in the all-star division, and I was selected to be one of those coaches. So thanks, Adam, for sending me. Basically, if you're not familiar with how Token Minorities tournaments work usually, they have a open division and then an all-star division. The open division this time around has 160 competitors, and they have to go through a preliminary round of pool play to advance. I think it's the top 2 out of a group of 5 end up advancing. So they have like 32 groups, I think. So then that means that what's that? 64 people end up advancing, and then so they do that before all the streams, and then these people who advance will go on and compete, I think, in pools of 4, and the top 2 of those advance. So it's 16 or something. No, it's 32 out of those 64 will end up advancing. And then you have the All-Star division. They don't have to do a preliminary round of pool play. They will, on the day of the first stream, just start competing in their pools of 5. So there's 40 All-Stars, 8 pools. So then 2 out of the top 5 there will advance, so that's 16. So then there's 48 people who advance to the final bracket. I think the All-Stars get a bye, or like the top All-Star from each pool gets a bye or something like that. And you basically have like a NCAA March Madness style tournament bracket. And eventually you go through like 6 rounds, and you eventually have a champion. So we will be then competing in that first round of all-star pool play on the day of the stream, which is really nice because we don't have to go through all the prelims and stuff. We did that in March Madness, and we were able to advance to the final bracket, but we promptly got eliminated by Rob Jr. because that was a really hard matchup. But what are you going to do about that? So we ended up in a draft pool with a bunch of Australians, which meant it went a little slow, but luckily we were in no rush. And we got the 3rd overall pick in our draft pool. So when I realized I had the 3rd overall pick, I kind of had the idea of drafting Megalop plus Gothitelle. And so with my first pick, I did decide to go with Megalopony, which everybody should know what this thing does. It just has unresisted dual stab options, which is really great. And it has some good utility options with Encore, Healing Wish, etc. It's got Power Up Punch. It's got Quick Attack. So it's pretty nice. Unfortunately, Baton Pass is banned in this tournament, so we can't use Baton Pass to get momentum on incoming fighting types or psychic types, or not fighting types, fairy types. So that's a little unfortunate, but I understand why they banned it. Stuff like Scolipede plus Necrozma, Scolipede plus Xurkitree is just too hard to deal with, especially when you only have 8 Pokemon that you can draft. You theoretically could draft less, but I think in this setting it's really important to draft as many as possible. So that being said, Lopunny is obviously great. The first 2 picks, just in case you guys were wondering, were Lando T and Zygarde. And like, I'm starting to think that, especially in these tournament settings, but I think even in draft pool play, that you pretty much, like, if you have a first round pick, you should be targeting one of those 2 Pokemon. Those might be like the 2 best Pokemon in Draft League right now, just because they're so hard to counter. And like, if you draft one of them, that means that you only have to prepare for the other ground type. But if you have to prepare for both Lando T and Zygarde, it's nearly impossible, especially in a tournament format where you only have 8 Mons. So that's just sort of a side note. I'm starting to think that those Mons are just so good. So anyway, I was trying to come up with a good draft plan around Goth and Lopunny, and with the team size being only 8 Pokemon, I was finding that if I wanted to get Gothitelle, it was going to be too difficult to build a balanced team, just because that one slot, that pretty much goes to Gothitelle. Gothitelle really only has one job, and that's to trap Pokemon, revenge kill them, or trick them and set up Calm Minds and things like that. It doesn't really have a ton of defensive value, just because it's got like really poor Fizz Def and things like that. So being one member short, basically playing with a 7-mon team, trying to build an offensive and defensive core with only 7 mons was nearly impossible, just as I was trying to draw up draft plans. So I decided to go to plan B, which was get Tony Stark with my 2nd round pick. And the reason being that Scizor can really handle fairy types and psychic types very well, which I would describe as the best 2 switch-ins to Lopunny. There are other Pokemon, like basically anything that resists high jump kick and has a reasonable defense stat can switch into Lopunny, assuming it has reliable recovery. So things like Reuniclus, Mew, Clefable, things like that. Those are all good switch-ins. Like Bug does resist fighting, Poison resists fighting, but there's not a ton of Bug and Poison types that have reliable recovery off the top of my head. And I mean, in any case, Scizor isn't threatened by Bug or Poison types either. So we can bring Scizor in, and if a Psychic type is being threatened out, we can Pursuit Trap it wherever Pursuit is. So that's going to be the plan with the Scizor. And obviously has other great moves in its move pool. It's got a great ability in Technician. Sorry, I'm burping, guys. So Technician is going to boost up all of its moves like Bullet Punch, Bug Bite. It's funny that Bug Bite's not even on the usable moves. Like Bug Bite is its best bug move by far, not counting U-Turn, of course. U-Turn is obviously amazing. And then another nice thing about Scizor is that it does get defog, so that is very nice because we only have so many mons to pick, so you can only get so many hazard removers on your team. So Scizor's gonna be very nice for that. I haven't had too many opportunities to use Scizor in the past. I've used it in a couple of sort of qualifying tournaments for leagues, and so I'm excited to have it back on the team. The other Pokemon that I really wanted to go with my Lopunny was Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen is amazing. Everybody, if you're not familiar with Nidoqueen, you should get yourself familiar, because it's just so versatile. It's got really nice bulk stats. Across the board, this is very bulky. Its typing is sneakily good, just because it is obviously electric immunity, but it's also a good fighting resist. It's fairy killer. It is a steel killer, and it's resists fighting. So I wanted Nidoqueen for the ability to check fighting types and fairy types that are going to threaten Lopunny. So like anything with Mach Punch, Nidoqueen's going to be able to switch in with ease, and those Mach Punches would otherwise be threatening the Lopunny. This thing gets Stealth Rocks and Toxic Spikes, which is amazing. And then it gets like the move pool of a god, or I guess in Nidoqueen's case, a goddess. Just because it gets like pretty much any move that you can think of. It gets like Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, Ice Punch. It gets T-Bolt, Flamethrower, Ice Beam. It gets Sucker Punch. The list goes on and on. It even gets Pursuit in case I don't want to bring Scizor for some reason as a Pursuit Trapper. I don't know what Nidoqueen would be trapping that Scizor doesn't already trap, but yeah, this is one of my favorite Pokemon to use, and it just always is good. Whether it's defensive or if you bring like an offensive set, obviously it doesn't have amazing special attack or physical attack, but you give it Sheer Force and then it's great. It's very potent. And you can run it Scarf, you can run it with Focus Sash, etc., etc. So that is quite nice. And then the next Pokemon that I really wanted was Latias. So Latias is a good mon for me, I think, because it's another Pokemon that checks fighting types that would otherwise threaten Lopunny. But the typing that Latias has is just so nice. because it resists fire, water, grass. It resists electric. It resists fighting. It resists, all sorts of things. And just being able to have a catch-all Pokemon that's going to be a good defensive pivot is really nice for my team. And it's just really nice in these tournament formats where you don't have a lot of Mons to fill in your team. So the fact that this can sort of be like a catch-all defensive check, I'm really excited about. And this is also going to be my Z move user. So I can, what is Dragonium Z? So I can give this Dragonium Z to fire off Draco Meteors, or the Devastating Drake that are boosted off of Draco Meteors, and I won't take any sort of attack drop, which is great. I can go for Calm Mind plus Devastating Drake plus Draco Meteor, effectively get 2 kills if the circumstances are right, so that's very nice. And then this is another Pokemon with Healing Wish, and it also gets Regular Wish, and it also gets Defog, so this is going to be a really nice all-around Pokemon, kind of like Nidoqueen. It can serve in an offensive or defensive role. Maybe with the shape-up of my team, or the makeup of my team, the way it's shaking up, the Latias might be more defensive more often than not, but we'll have to see. I'm not really going to promise anything. I always like to try and mix up my sets. Never bring the same sets all too often, so that's quite nice. So... and I'm also, trying to set up a good speed tiers, a good distribution of speed tiers. So I've got Pokemon at 135 with Lopunny. I've got 110 with Lottie, 76 with Nidoqueen, 65 with Tony Stark. So I want to try and fill in the gap between Nidoqueen and Latias. My next Pokemon really allows me to do that, being Shaman. After I've drafted these Mons, so these Mons, like I've mentioned, Nidoqueen and Latias have defensive value, but they're also very offensive, and I've so far have no checks to Lando or Zygarde, which are really scary to me. I'm also a little weak to Scizor, which is concerning to me, but at least, I have Nidoqueen, which is bulky enough to take a hit and hit it back with Flamethrower. Scizor isn't really threatened by Mega Scizor. Can't do a whole lot back besides Natural Gift, but that's just something to note. But the Lando and the Zygarde are what I'm really worried about, so I want to draft a set of Mons that are good for taking on Lando and Zygarde. So Shaman is the first of those Mons, and even though it doesn't have any stats that stand out, it's one of those whatever mythical legendaries, so it gets 100 stats across the board. I think Shaman's awesome because it gets a nice support move pool, Aromatherapy, Healing Wish, but it gets a really potent move in Seed Flare. Seed Flare doesn't really have switch-ins because it does get that 40% chance to drop Spadef by 2 levels. So unless you're like a Heatran or something, you're not going to be switching into Shaman all that well, given that you could be having your Spadef targeted by 2 or lowered by 2. You're basically it's basically giving Shaman like a nasty plot boost. If it does get this 40% chance, so that's quite nice. And it doesn't get amazing coverage, but it gets just enough, like Gleam, Earth Power, Air Slash, gets Psychic, gets just enough. It doesn't really have great physical moves, but it does get like Swords Dance, Seed Bomb, Quick Attack, etc. So who knows, maybe we'll do something like that. But yeah, I mostly drafted Shaman to be a ground check, but I'm excited for the opportunities for this to be a special wall breaker as well. Slap a Choice Specs or a Life Orb on this thing, and Shaman really can do some work. So that's quite fun. And it's kind of funny the way that I've drafted my team. I actually have 3 Healing Wish users, so that's pretty nice. I'm not disappointed about that. So the next Pokemon that I wanted was Electros, my Nicola, because this is a pretty decent check to any Landorus that's not packing Gravity or Smackdown. And just the fact that I have Electros on this team, if it forces Lando to run Smackdown or Gravity, it just means that that's one less move slot that it can run for Double Dance. So that's really nice. Like basically with Shaman, it's forced to run Fly. With this Mon, it's forced to run Smackdown or Gravity. So it's going to make it very, very hard for it to pack Double Dance. I guess it could be packing Double Dance with Rocky MZ, And so I'll have to do some calcs to see how well Electros takes Rocky MZ. Whatever that move is, the Continental Crush. But Electros is just otherwise good because it's a nice bulky mon. It's like Nidoqueen, it just drinks hits because there's nothing that can hit this thing super effectively other than a Moldbreaker Excadrill or a 1,000 Arrows from Zygarde. And this is another mon that gets the move pool of a god. It just gets so many different coverage moves on both the physical and special sides. So you do see a lot of Assault Vest sets run with Electros, which is pretty cool. But I think that some like leftover sets, some bulky sets, you could run like Coil Electros, which is really nice. I also want to try and run some offensive Electroses because that would be pretty fun. Like a Zap Plate or Choice Specs or something like that. And the nice thing about Electros too is that it's an electric type that gets both Volt Switch and U-Turn. So I don't have to worry necessarily about Electros being halted by ground types. I don't have to lose all that momentum. I can just go for U-Turn and pivot out on an incoming ground type, and I can go into Shaman or Lottie or whatever I feel like is most appropriate. So definitely a fun mon. It's got that T-Wave, which is always nice. I'm never gonna complain about T-Wave. Then the last Pokemon that I added for my dealing with ground type core is Beyonce, my Granbull. And I just named it Beyonce because there's that one picture of her from the Super Bowl when she did the halftime show where she just like looks like just so weird. And it kind of made me think of Granbull, so I named the Granbull Beyonce. I've never used Granbull before, so I'm kind of excited for that opportunity. But Granbull does have the Intimidate ability, got a nice HP stat, a workable defense stat. So this will be really nice because I can go for Intimidate on things like Zygarde and weaken them a little bit. I can Intimidate Landos, of course, as well, but the Lando has a much bigger attack stat than Zygarde, so it's immediately a bigger threat than Zygarde. So, but anyway, this is a nice another support Pokemon because it does get Heal Bell and gets screens or at least it gets Reflect. I don't know if it gets Light Screen. Doesn't seem like it. But it's not bad offensively either. Like 120 attack is nothing to sneeze at. So if I can bring a set with like Play Rough and Crunch, like Play Rough and Crunch hits pretty much every Pokemon in the game neutrally. So that's really nice. Like I can't think off the top of my head anything that doesn't take that combination of moves neutrally. I'm hoping maybe in the next generation they release a Dark Fairy type because that's dirty. It's really dirty. So that is going to be the Granbull, and it's a little slow. I mentioned earlier that I'd like to patch up my speed tiers a little bit. Right now I've got a big gap between Sonic and Nidoqueen, and I'm lacking a water type. I'm lacking a second means of hazard setting. I'm lacking a rapid spinner, and I'm feeling a little weak to rain. Like I guess between Shaman and Lottie I can kind of take on rain, but I just think I'd like to deter that. And I'm particularly worried about the combination of Scizor plus Rain. So I thought that Kabutops would be a really nice mon to put into my 8th slot here because it does get Rocks, it does get Rapid Spin, it gets Swift Swim, so I can combat any Rain teams that I go up against in this tournament pretty well. Because other than Kingdra, Kabutops outspeeds every possible Rain Sweeper. Which is really nice. And it's it's a good fire resist, it's a good flying resist. Obviously we have to be cognizant of our 4x grass weakness and play around that. But if I can use Kabutops to just blow away teams with Waterfall and Aqua Jet, I'll be a happy guy. And it gets decent coverage to support the water moves. It gets X Scissor, it gets Knockoff, Superpower, things like that. So yeah, that's going to be our Scissor Hands, the Kabutops. And as I look over this team from top to bottom, as I just said, I feel a little weak to Mega Scizor, especially as it's as it's supported by rain, just because I don't have any fire stab on the team, so my best way to hit it is mostly HP fires on things like Lottie and Shaman. But I do at least have like Fire Punch on Lopunny. I do have Fire Punch on Granbull. Xena has Flamethrower. Xena's probably my best Scizor check, which is not saying much. And I can always run Flamethrower on Electros and Natural Gift on Scizor. So I'll have to be creative with how I deal with those mons. But I'm otherwise relatively happy with the team. Like this, when it was like the second round and I was trying to plan out the draft, I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to do well with it. But I think this team is really going to allow Lopunny to thrive. I've got some good pivots. I've got a few momentum options between Scizor's U-turn and Electros's U-turn. I'm a little bummed again about the lack of baton pass, but I think it's for the best. And yeah, I've just got some nice threats that I'm looking forward to using. So the streams are going to be on August 25th and August 27th. So the 25th is going to be that first round of pool play, and then the 27th is going to be for the bracket for everybody who advances from Friday. So really encourage you guys to check it out. I'm not 100% sure which stream it'll be on. In the past, it's been on Crobat for the Wins stream, but I think there is now a TTM tournament stream that will be showing off this tournament. In either case, I'll leave a description down below, or leave a link in the description down below for you guys to go check it out. And make sure you go support the Token Minorities, give them a sub, give them a follow on Twitter. And yeah, that'll do it from me. I'll probably be uploading the battles once the tournament's over. But I do hope you guys drop in to catch the live stream to watch me and all my other friends that are playing. There's a ton of people from UBC who are competing. The Verd, Riz, Turkey, Levine. And there's a bunch of people from the open bracket. I think like Bronson and Chip are in the open bracket amongst other people. So, gonna be a good time. Make sure you check it out. And make sure you check back to my channel for all the gaming and Pokemon content. And until the next time, I will see you guys later.